Hello and welcome back to Game Starter, our panel series on working in the games industry. I'm Judith. I'm with Gamecity Hamburg. We support and connect and make the games ecosystem in Hamburg visible through diverse events and funding projects. And today we'll be talking about game scouting with three experts from the industry. But before we get into it, of course, we have some recommendations for upcoming events. First of all, we have our Game City Treff happening at Polaris. In general, Polaris is coming to Hamburg next week, I think, or in 2 weeks. And we'll be having our Game City Treff at Grüner Jäger on October 10th. Sorry, that was my mouse. At 6 p.m. And we're once again sponsored by our friends over at Photon. It's a networking event for everyone. You can get your ticket via the website. So be there. We're happy to have you. And then for another event that we have coming up on October 21st, that's our XP Boost. And really, it's kind of matching with the event that we're having today. There's always two sides to every story in a way. We said this earlier today. Because today we talk about game scouting and publishing and the world of publishing. But, maybe you want to find out about the world of self-publishing too. So we have the Game City XP Boost on self-publishing and marketing with Victoria Tran on October 21st at 7 p.m. Exactly. Victoria is a seasoned professional. She has worked on titles such as Among Us, and I'm sure she will have very exciting things to tell us. Let's get into the schedule for tonight. We are currently in the welcome and introduction part of this evening. We're shortly gonna get into the main part and discuss all things game scouting, which we're all very excited about. We're joined by panelists from three different companies, three different positions even. Not all of them are officially game scouts, but they're all also very seasoned professionals from the industry. You can ask questions via the chat if you want to. We can incorporate them, or we will incorporate them, and we will also have a final Q&A round in the end around 7 p.m. and then we're going to finish around 7:30. So who are our experts for the day? Tonight we have with us Frank, who is a game scout at Focus Entertainment, Reese, they are a senior producer at Devolver Digital, and we have Vlad with us from Bright Gambit. He's also a game scout.
Hi, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
So thank you for inviting us. We're all super excited to be here. Even
Yes.
if our faces probably don't show it, we're very excited.
Thank you. Thank you. It's perfect that you're here. So let's just get into it. Let's start with a little introduction, of course. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where do you work? I mean, I already mentioned your positions and where you work, but you can go into that a little bit. How long have you been in the industry? Where have you worked before? Yeah, maybe Frank, do you want to start?
Yeah, totally. So hi, name is Frank. Obviously, I'm a game scout for three different publishers, which is always a confusing part to people. So mainly, as you can see from my background as well, I work at Focus Entertainment, which is triple I, double A publisher. Then at the same time, I also work at .emu and the Arcade Crew, which are indie publishing and licensed IP publishing. They're all part of the same parent company. This is why I get to wear three different hats. Yeah, that's it's very interesting. It's always challenging, I would say. I've been a game scout now for about 5.5 years. Started in 2020, right as the pandemic started. Moved to Romania and started working at a small Romanian publisher called Those Awesome Guys. You'll hear more about them from Vlad as well, because we were actually colleagues back then. Been there for about 2.5 years. Moved over to Tiny Build, which is based in the Netherlands, where I'm actually from as well. Became head of portfolio there for a little less than a year. And then, yeah, joined Focus.in Arcade Crew at the start of last year. So almost 2 years now. In the past, I've done marketing and PR for a couple of years. And I always want to say my roots in the industry were as a game journalist back in the Netherlands for a Dutch game website, which I think unfortunately no longer exists. But yeah, it's a good start, I would say. Yeah, handing it over.
That is an interesting journey. I'm sure you have a lot to tell us tonight. Reese, do you want to take over and just give us an overview of your journey to where you are today and where you are today?
I know worries. So I'm Reese. I am a senior producer at Devolver Digital. I've been with Devolver now for about 3 years. But that's 3 years of a 20-year career in the video games industry. I have worked all over. My job isn't actually scouting, but I'll explain a little bit more about how scouting actually works at Devolver in a little bit. But I started actually as a QA tester at Sega in America back 20 years ago, and have moved up through various different companies. So I previously worked at Microsoft. I also worked with Square Enix Collective for a wee while, which is the indie publishing wing for Square. Which is where I discovered my true love, which is indie games, and have not looked back since. I've worked within an indie developer as well as a producer there. And then also did a bit of biz dev under a company called Robot Teddy for a wee while before moving over to Devolver. Which has always been a dream for me. So I honestly could not be happier to be here. It's a great team, getting to work on some fantastic stuff. And being able to work with some incredible indies, and I think that for me has always been the best thing about meeting these great devs working on fantastic titles and being able to support them is the dream, really. So yeah, and I'm based in Glasgow, Scotland. If you hear the Scottish accent, there you go. That's where it comes from. All right.
Very good. Thank you so much. Also very excited to hear what you are going to tell us, especially because, as you said, you're not a game scout per se, but still. But yeah, last but not least, Vlad, do you want to get into it and just give us a quick overview of your way to
Sure.
where you are?
Sure, yeah. It's been a long way for each and every one of us, I feel, but it's been crazy. So I'm excited to tell you about my side of the story as well. I'm Vlad. I currently work as a game scout for Bright Gambit. Bright Gambit is a small funding initiative, let's call it, from Sweden. We like working with small projects, small scale projects, small teams of developers, mainly from either developing regions or from uh, underrepresented backgrounds. Um, these are kind of like our bread and butter of people that we want to work with, but that's not necessarily a limitation. If a project is cool enough and fits our quality standards, then that's not necessarily a limitation. Um, this is what I do now, but I started doing scouting probably around mid to late pandemic, so I would say 2021. This is basically when I was working alongside Frank at Those Awesome Guys, which is a small publisher from Romania. Used to be a publisher, right now they're only doing development. Um, we Those Awesome Guys is mainly known for two big projects, which some of you might have heard of. One of them is Move or Die, which was a pretty big game somewhere in the mid 2010s. And afterwards, because of Monster Prom, which again was a pretty big title at the end of the 2010s, probably around 2018, 2019. That game became like a huge franchise at this point, so probably a lot of people have heard at least about it. Um, Before that, I used to do PR and marketing. That was kind of my shtick at Those Awesome Guys because I've been working with them since 2014, I think. So I'm around the 11th year anniversary, I guess, in the industry at this point. I used to do marketing, PR, and event management for Move or Die and Monster Prom, and then ended up transitioning into scouting and helping out Frank for a little bit. I think we only worked together for like 6 months, maybe, Frank. I don't remember
Ish. Yeah,
exactly.
maybe
Kind of
even
like that.
less. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And my experience at Those Awesome Guys concluded, I think, in early 2024. I signed a bunch of projects for them. One of them being probably the most interesting project that I signed for Those Awesome Guys was Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, which was the first project of the team that just put out Clover Pit a couple of days ago. You might know it. It's the game that's going to be making $1 billion at the end of the year, probably. Um, and yeah, after that in 2024, I moved into freelancing. I did a lot of consultancy on release management and basically indie publishing for PC. I worked with a lot of small developers, helping them out. Um, And in mid 2024, I became portfolio manager for a small indie company from Belgium called Oro Interactive, which again you might have heard of in the last year because they've been releasing some really cool projects. Left them at the at the beginning of summer this year, and right now I'm full time with Bright Gambit. So kind of that's the short version of the entire story
A short
up till
version of
now.
a very long way.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Well, thank you for introducing yourselves. We're very
Yep.
happy to have you on the panel today, and I'm personally very excited to find out what you guys do all year round. And with that, I'm gonna hand the virtual mic over to my colleague Helen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's start with a very basic question. Frank, would you mind explaining to us what actually is a game scout? What do you actually do? Like, what's your role and purpose in the games industry?
I think the short version will always be I get paid to play video games. That's the very short answer. It always works with family as well. Need to go a little bit deeper, obviously, but yeah, if I have to talk to family, that's the way I would explain it. So basically what I'm doing is actually a lot of admin work. It's a lot of answering emails. It's a lot of updating backends with information from products you see, developers you meet, things you spot online, things you see at events, any submission form that your company is using. So there's a lot of like management of information involved actually. So you're making sure that it's archived somewhere so everybody has easy access to everything any developer pretty much shares with the company. Then it goes on to filtering projects, making sure that you quickly identify interesting projects that come in or that you've found yourself, where there's actually a pitch deck or a build that you could share with the rest of the company. Then I think, yeah, we generally move on to playing a lot of games. Like I said, to start things off, I think pretty much half the week I spend actually on playing builds. So these are games that have been filtered, generally speaking. So they've already gone past the inbox filter, or it's people I've met at events, where yeah, we test the build, we write down feedback, we talk about it within the team once a week. And then moving it on to like, okay, is this interesting? Let's move it on to the further committee, which is usually like upper management, depending on which company I'm presenting the product for. At Focus, it's a bigger process because it's a big company. It's like 100, 200 people in total. So we have many steps that we need to get through. On the indie side of things, it's generally a bit shorter cycles, where I have a meeting with our CEO once a week. I present them cool projects. If he likes them, show them to the rest of the company. If not, hey, sorry, it was cool, I enjoyed it, somebody else didn't. Here, unfortunately, ends the road. As I do say, as a scout, we are champions of projects, but we're generally not the people actually signing the games. I think for some companies, the scout maybe has a little bit more power. But generally speaking, it's like we need to be vocal about the things we like and push them through, even though you get resistance. This is how some games end up getting dropped and being successful with other publishing. You're like, see, I told you so. But yeah, that's also a big part of it, I would say. Yeah, sorry, I'm not going from this to there, as I generally, my brain works.
Can I throw in a clarification there? So are you the
Yes.
first person of contact? Are you the first person that a team gets in touch with at Focus, or is there someone before you?
So I'm part of at Focus. I'm part of the team that is the first contact point. At Dotemu Arcade Crew, I am the first person because I'm a one-person team over there. So it really depends on the size of the publisher. Generally, if it's more people or if it's just one person, I would always say like it's more beneficial to have at least two people because you can actually have a discussion. I can't really discuss that much with myself, unfortunately. But yeah, that's generally how it works. So yeah, we're kind of like the bouncers for the club, seeing if you're cool enough to enter.
Okay, that's the picture I was trying to avoid to make you seem a bit nicer, but okay.
Sorry. I'm a nice person, but sorry, I do serve a goal, and I need to keep that in mind.
In German, we say you've got a hard door, and that is necessary sometimes. Vlad, is it the same as a scout at Bright Gambit? Also a lot of admin work, and then like passing it on
Yeah.
to others for signing, or?
Yeah, pretty much. Especially, I think for me, it's a bit of a more even more complicated experience than for Frank right now, because like he said, in the triple I double A space where there's bigger teams, there's usually a lot of people you can bounce ideas off of. In small teams, and I'm usually used to working in very small teams. At Bright Gambit, we're only 3 people that basically are part of the company full time. Same was at Oro, same was at Those Awesome Guys, where I was, after Frank left, I was doing scouting by myself. It's just me trying to figure out exactly if a title that I get pitched or a title that I find is actually worth showing to the rest of the extended team, and I'm not just crazy in that specific moment in time. So it's a lot of like internal monologue that you have, internal conversation that you have with yourself, where you're trying to tick all the boxes and figure out exactly, hey, is this worth showing to everyone else? I'm not crazy, and it's worth going forward with the next steps, which we'll talk about probably a bit later. But yeah, it's a lot of admin work, a lot of emails, a lot of structuring things in archives, because I tend to keep an archive of the projects that I get, mainly for myself personally, because I tend to do talks, and I tend to give people statistics based on every year, based on how many pitches we receive, what the quality is looking like, what the trends are in terms of the pitches we're receiving and stuff. So a lot of admin work, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of emails, and most of the time we try to counterbalance that type of admin work with playing games and trying to enjoy them from a consumer perspective as well. So consuming them with your heart and soul, not only with your brain, with your analytical side of your brain. And also traveling, going to events, trying to other regions, trying to meet people on their home turf and not have them come to you. Um, it's um, it's one of the cooler sides of having a job like this. You get to experience a lot of other cultures, other communities, and stuff like that. So that kind of counterbalances the bureaucratical work of spreadsheets and doc files and emails and stuff.
Interesting. I wouldn't have thought before this panel that you need to be such a lover of data also.
It
I
is
thought it's
important.
just playing video games.
It is
Great.
important, and a lot, just to add a little bit at the end, it's very important, especially right now in the last year or two, because everybody is trying to be as risk adverse as possible and trying to justify everything through a little bit of data, a little bit of numbers to back up everything that you're saying. 5-10 years ago, you could have come with a project to your CEO and told them, look, I love these guys, the team is amazing, just give them some money to make this game. And it worked sometimes. Right now, there's so much data out there, that whenever you're pitching internally a project to someone, you're probably going to need to show some numbers for it. And
Yeah,
sometimes that leads to back and forths, and like Frank said, overly complicated situations with the people who might not be on the same page as you, and you would have to decline a project because somebody doesn't understand it the way you do. And yeah, it becomes frustrating, but at the end of the day, when you hit a good title, it feels amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I think
sure. Oh, sorry, Frank. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, and I think an interesting part is as well, like no matter the amount of data you have available, I think such a big
Yeah.
part of this is still gut feeling. Trying to convey gut feeling is the hardest thing possible, because not everybody's going to get the same gut feeling. But if a game creates a new trend or a new sort of genre mix that hasn't been done before, there's no data that can prove that this is going to work.
Yep.
This is how Vampire Survivors, Balatro, these types of games came to be. you need somebody who believes in these kind of projects and not just looks at data. Because if you just end up being a number crunching person, you're going to miss the great titles that the data actually says you should not. This is too risky, but you just know like there's something there. Maybe you cannot put it into words. Maybe you can, but yeah, it's just about the convincing aspect as well. I think that's also a big thing to it, because yes, we do use more data, but I don't want to rely on it, and I don't think anybody should or does too much. But yeah.
Thank you. Speaking of believers and risk takers, Reese, you work at Devolver Digital, and as you mentioned, you're not a game scout in title. On the opposite, you mentioned that Devolver doesn't even really work with game scouts, which of course makes one question: how do you get games signed with Devolver Digital? How does that work?
Magic. No, it's so Devolver doesn't have anyone that's a scout per se. We have a couple people who work in biz dev, but it's not specific to scouting games, signing games, finding games. We're kind of lucky in that we have an amazing team of people who are very seasoned professionals who very much understand Devolver and what Devolver is and what really makes us excited about a game. So really anyone at the company is empowered to try games and suggest games that might be things that would be interesting for us to sign. That's not to say that we don't have a very streamlined process. We do have our website. People can submit stuff through there. There are people who go through that. That's more on the biz dev side. But the rest of us kind of get to do the fun bit of scouting, which is going to shows and meeting with developers and traveling the world and getting to try a bunch of stuff. You know, you can reach out to most people at Devolver if you can find us. So we're a wee bit hidey, but if you can find us and reach out to us and pitch your game to us, and then there's a good chance that we'll have a look at it. We'll get back to you. And again, it's that first point of contact thing, right? That something I genuinely quite enjoy, and I've done quite a lot of in my career, both at Devolver and elsewhere, is that initial point of meeting developers and explaining to them what we do and what we can bring to the table, and getting to know them, getting to know what they're working on, and creating a relationship, even if it's a case of the thing they're working on right now is not the thing for us, but maybe their next thing will be, right? And we want to have that friendly face on the company of, we want to have work on great games with great people, and we hope that people feel empowered to come to us with amazing things, right? So it might seem a little chaotic, and I think a lot of things at Devolver, when you explain it, sounds a little chaotic, but it works in its own way. I think that because we get so many games that come in as one of the more prominently known names in indie publishing, I think for any one person to be in charge of looking after everything that was coming in, and we get, I don't know, 1,700, 1,800, 2,000 pitches a year or something. It's a lot for any one person. And also Devolver is a lot smaller than I think a lot of people would assume. When I joined, I think I was, probably like number 55 or 60 at the company. And before that, it had only been like 20 people, right? So there was a big grow up when the company went public, but still we're quite small for a publisher of the footprint that we have. So there's just, it's nice that everyone feels empowered to be able to do stuff. Also, it's just really hard for us to have any one person have to handle that workload. So it's good. It gives everyone an opportunity to have an opinion too. But as I said, as the other said, it's that first line of communication thing. You meet with one of us, you share a game with one of us, and if we love it and we can see that it fits with Devolver, then it would go on to another group, which is the Green Light Committee, that would then be deciding if it fits into everything else. So yeah, we take a lot of the considerations of, does it fit with our catalog? Does it fit with our schedules? And that's really a really good thing for me on the production side, is because I know the schedules of all of the games coming through, and I can quite clearly say, like, I love this, but it's coming out and we've got this really big other game coming out, and then we've got like 3 bangers coming out after it. It's just not going to fit, or it's too similar to something else we're working on, or something like that. So it's quite nice to actually be in the position that I'm in, because I kind of have a little bit more oversight of the pipeline and where things are on the pipeline, rather than just being specifically about that initial point, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, sounds awesome. May I ask, just to clarify a bit, Frank said, okay, he meets once a week with the CEO and has to show that person all the games. If you find something that you really love and want to champion, who would you show it next?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we have a couple people that kind of are the biz dev side of things. We'd reach out to one of them, sort of say, hey, so I really like this. The team's really great. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a problem for us to do this. You know, the workload's manageable, the price makes sense. And then sort of leave it with them basically for a second, just to give it another wee try, and then they can come back and say, you know, it's a yay or a nay. It's sort of a pre-green light committee thing. So I mean, it's not scouting specifically because they're not going out and doing that first point of contact thing, but it is just a I guess a final barrier of sense checking before it goes on, which you may not have with places that have specific game scouts because they already have that built into themselves. But for us, I guess, because we get so many pitches and so many of them are honestly incredible, it's we have to be really careful that everything fits and every piece makes sense. So it's the more people that are involved, just to say, okay, this is 100%, we have to, or if it's like, this is 80%, but we've got 2 other 100%, and that's just not going to be enough. You know, you kind of need those checks and balances.
Yeah, I'm wondering, how can you all sleep soundly at night knowing like, oh my God, there's so many good games out there that I'm not
It's
getting to
hard.
play and to push.
What is sleep?
That's the correct answer, I guess. Yeah.
It's my brother melatonin. He helps a lot. So
All right. I think we're going to stay a bit on this whole signing topic for a moment, but also I want to encourage the chat. If you have a specific question regarding this, please throw it in. Our lovely colleague Santa is looking at the YouTube live chat and will hand over those questions to us, and we will hand them over to our experts. So this is your chance. But while we wait for the audience, I've got another question for you. You all mentioned, oh, you're traveling and meeting the teams and you're getting stuff sent. At which point do you usually first get in touch with a team, or what's like a good point for a team to contact you? Is there a perfect point? Can you tell us a bit more about that? Vlad, would you mind starting us off here?
yeah, sure. So again, I think this type of question differs from one publisher to another because certain amount of either funds mainly also like receiving pitches for prototypes, for example. But in most cases, I think a lot of publishers these days require you to have a playable build in order to be able to do a proper evaluation. So a proper build doesn't necessarily mean it has to be super polished, something you would receive, you would put, I don't know, in a Steam event, for example, or in a Steam Next Fest. It doesn't have to be at that level of quality, but it needs to be what we generally call a good enough vertical slice that I can understand the mechanics as a scout and can get a good idea of what the game's visual slash art direction is gonna be like. Obviously, again, it doesn't need to be super polished. It doesn't need to have like super good UI already implemented or stuff like that, but it needs to give me the vision for me to be able to understand which in which direction this project is going. Other than that, I think a pitch package should always include a deck, a short deck, preferably under 10 slides would be ideal, but I'll give you 15. If it's over 15, then probably I won't look at it, unfortunately, and most people won't because there's no time physically in a day if you're only a one person scouting department, or even if you're 2 or 3 people, it's just like it's not enough time. So the shorter the better. And besides that, besides having a pitch deck, I guess it's very important that either inside that deck or separately in another document, you have a well-structured ask. This basically means that you as a developer should know what you need in terms of like resources, either financial or physical, or services from a potential investor or partner in order to make that game become reality, right? So you should know what you need. If you're pitching an idea or a project and you have no idea what you need in order to make it happen, you should probably go back to the drawing board and figure that out before pitching. It helps a lot. It helps us a lot that we meet developers who understand what is needed in order to make something happen. So I guess kind of I'm trying not to, because I could talk about this for like 20 minutes probably, but in order to simplify things, I guess it's very important to have a stable, playable build that shows the vision, and a pitch deck that includes information about the game, information about visuals and art direction of the game, and also a well-structured development timeline and a budget. How much is this going to cost me, or how much do you need in order to survive, I don't know, X amount of months in order to make this project happen? That's kind of like the short version of it.
Thank you. Is there a thing such as being too far into development to send you a pitch?
For me, no, but I think Frank has a different idea probably about.
Oh yeah,
Okay, yeah, Frank, you've
100%.
got
It
three
depends very
publishers.
Again,
Yeah,
it
but
depends very much on the type of partner you want to be as a publisher/investor.
Yeah, that's 100% it. Also, potentially size of the company, the structure you have to go through to get a game potentially signed. The longer the process is, the more runway you need for the conversation to start. So realistically speaking, both on the Focus side, but also on the Arcade Crew side, because even there, we're similar to Devolver, we're like 50, 60 people. So things tend to move a bit slower. So realistically, we're looking at 6 months out from release to even get like the contract signed. So you'll probably start talking already a couple months before then. Because I also generally say to people, like, expect between 2 to 4, maybe even 6 months from very first conversation to actually having term sheet on the table, contract on the table, negotiated with lawyers. The bigger the company, the bigger the product, the longer things can take, at least from my perspective. But also maybe going back to the question you asked, Vlad. So for me, my role as a game scout, I always tell people there's almost not a too early to talk to me. That's especially goes if you know me, if we've ever interacted at an event, if we ever had a meeting, if we ever had email contact, you can always poke me in the future again and be like, hey, I've been thinking about this concept, or hey, I've like 10, 15 concepts. Can you just give me your like 1-2 lines quick feedback on this? So for me, there's not really a too early. Because as a game scout, you need to be able to identify projects as early as possible, preferably before the competition gets a wind of it, and we can already be in good graces with the developer because we got feedback maybe on a prototype where everybody else is like, oh yeah, now come back when you have a vertical slice. And there's also prototypes that are extremely solid. Like great that Reese is here, because Ball Pit for me, like I got the prototype 2-3 years ago, I think, from the developer. I wasn't working at the publisher back then. We've already been in contact through those awesome guys, and it was like, hey, because you played the pitch build for my previous game so much, I just want to get some feedback on this new prototype. I was like, this is amazing, Kenny. This is great stuff. Devolver ended signing it. It's called Ball Pit. It's coming out soon, doing the promo already, Reese. It's amazing. Everybody buy it. So there's also a case for like really, really solid prototypes that, as long as you can show a strong core loop, the art doesn't have to be there, unless it always goes with a certain genre. If it's a very systemic game, the systems need to be in place. If it's a very narrative-driven game, you're focusing on narrative, like the world building first. If it's a very visual-driven game, you're going to focus on the art first. So that for different types of games, there's different stages where a game is signable, quote unquote, I would say. So yeah, but I just want to say, for me, there's no too early. But I think that mostly goes for game scouts. I'm curious what Reese's thoughts on that are.
I think for us, it's again, because we're in a bit of a privileged position where we have so many great games that are being pitched to us constantly. We will need a playable in order to move forward, and it's a shame because there are so many great concepts out there, and I know there's not a lot of support for developers from getting from that concept stage to having a playable stage. And it's something I get asked all the time is like, oh, we've got this really great idea. Can we bring it to you? And I'm like, no. I feel really bad for saying that. But it's, I mean, I can give feedback on that as personal, like being like, oh, I think this might be a good idea, but not as a, yes, we would definitely publish it if you did this thing. For Devolver, when it comes to signing stuff, it really comes down to feel more than anything else. And we need to be able to put our hands on it and play it and go, okay, this feels amazing. As you said with Ball Pit, it wasn't the prettiest game in the entire world when the initial build was going up, but you just instantly felt the fun. And that's the thing for us, is if we can feel the fun immediately, it doesn't matter if it looks terrible, right? It's like, okay, no, this is going to be amazing. I mean, even like early Cult of the Lamb builds were just not that incredible looking, but we could feel it immediately. I've played very, very beautiful games that were not fun at all that we didn't sign. It really comes down to feel. But there are other publishers that will approach things very differently. There are publishers out there that you have to have an entirely complete game in order to get signed with them, which I'm hearing is more of a thing now. For us, this sweet spot really, when you have a vertical slice, as opposed to you've got a complete game and you're ready to release and you're just looking for a publisher to sort of give you a little bit of extra marketing or a little bit extra sort of a name behind the game. We're less interested in those. Not to say it's never say never, but it's more of a case of we like to work with a developer through the process, build a relationship with them. We want to be able to start building up buzz early enough. And sometimes it can be quite difficult when someone has a complete game to then suddenly be like, and now everyone pay attention to it. There are people who specialize in that. That's great. It's just kind of not what we do. So, ideally it's sort of pre-alpha, you've got a vertical slice, we can get hands-on with it, we fall in love with it, and we're happy to move forward. There are exceptions to this, and I will say that there are things that will get signed on just a concept alone, but generally that is from people we have worked with previously. We already understand that they are going to be good at whatever they do. We already we send them Christmas cards, we're friends with them, that kind of thing. It's those established relationships that allow us to be able to have that trust. And I think that's the other thing that I'd also add to being a really important thing to having in your pitch decks is, who are you? What have you worked on previously? Do you have a good relationship with your team members? Have you got a track record? All of these things, your deck should be helping to build trust in the publishers you're pitching to, that you're the right person for making your game and you're completely capable of doing it. And that also comes to like what your proposed budget is. Does this make sense to us? If you've just pulled a number out of thin air being like, yeah, that feels like it's a good number, we know. We know you've made it up. And obviously tell us about your game, but you don't need to tell us all of the deep lore and why you thought of this. We don't need 20 pages about your feelings about this. We love that you're passionate about the games that you're making, but your initial pitch should 100% just be here's enough to get you interested. It's an amuse-bouche, right? It's get our interest, and then we'll ask for more info. Don't just throw it all out there. So yeah, hopefully that covers that.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to hear that we have such a range of what you should have prepared or where you should stand when you approach different publishers. I'd like to zoom in a bit more again and looking at your specific jobs or what you do exactly. So, Vlad, you already mentioned that you try to mix up playing games and doing all the admin stuff. So I'm assuming that's kind of what your workday looks like, but maybe you can talk a bit more about that and also tell us like which tabs are always open, which programs do you use a lot? Like what are your most important tools for your job?
So I'm gonna try to talk about scouting exclusively because, as I said, especially with Bright Gambit right now, we're a very, very small group of people. So I end up actually doing additional stuff alongside scouting. It is what it is. That's how what happens when you work inside a very, very small crew that needs to dedicate time to everything. Um, so in terms of scouting, my day usually is split among two different things that I do. One of them is proactive scouting, which basically means I go in different places on the internet to try and find people working on cool games. And that basically means scraping through social media, mainly Twitter, Reddit, a lot of subreddits that are very niche and where developers talk amongst themselves about cool things that they're working on. Um, Also, itch.io is a like test bed for creativity these days. I think that's a place where people can make weirder things than they do on Steam, for example, when they just release demos or whatever. It's just an experimental place where you can find something that you weren't expecting. It just surprises you. Um, so that's like the side of proactive scouting where you just go on social media um, or through Steam's upcoming lists and stuff like that and try to find the new thing that nobody's looking at yet. And the second thing would be uh, going through the incoming pitches that we receive through our submission form that we have on the website or through my email, through my personal email, or through any other channel that exists out there that either people from around the world could send the project to Bright Gambit or to myself directly. So it's like I said, 50-50. Mainly sometimes when there's like a big crowded period of pitch receiving, such as like around Gamescom, for example, or around GDC, you get an influx of a lot of people sending in their new decks. So you have to dedicate more time towards that. If not, just go through the wild west that the internet is and try to find cool projects that people are working on that nobody's looking at yet. Um, Kind of that's like the again the shortened distilled version of what proactive scouting and incoming pitch review process looks like on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to like software and stuff, there's nothing special. I mean, we a lot at Bright Gambit right now we just use like Google Sheets to to have like a database of incoming pitches or things that I find that are interesting. uh, I have a lot of templates that I've built up throughout the years that make things very, very easy to go through. In the past, when I used to work at Those Awesome Guys, we used to have like this automated system through ClickUp, which is like a CRM platform that anybody could use. It's similar to Trello. Probably Trello is more popular. Um, that's where like internally people structure all of the incoming projects and all of the proactively found projects as well, where all of the information can be dumped for anybody on the team to look through in case they need something or if they want to play a build or stuff like that. That's kind of the process, but it's not something like secret or I think Frank can probably talk about like systems because he probably has something more interesting going on at Focus, but a lot of people on the scouting side just use either Sheets, Excel, or any CRM platform that you can easily use for project management. It's nothing special. And we are actually a lot of scouts were talking a couple of days ago in one of the Discord servers that we hang out in, or the WhatsApp groups that we hang out in, because we were still asking ourselves, what is the perfect platform in 2025 to keep track of the projects that you're looking at? I don't think
What
there's
was the
consensus.
answer?
There's no consensus.
Oh,
Everybody
So many
seems to be
different
using
ones.
something different, but even if it sounds like archaic and weird in a way, a lot of people just use Google Sheets. That's the
That
that's the
was
answer.
absolutely the first thing I threw out when I started at the arcade crew because they
Yeah,
did use Google Sheet before I joined, and it's
yeah,
like, guys, seriously,
yeah,
no
yeah.
Google Sheets, please.
I'm I am in the process of trying to change this opinion at Bright Gambit right now.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be successful until the end of the year. Hopefully next year we'll start with something that's better than just a Google Sheet. But right now it's a Google Sheet. I can't tell you more than that.
Yeah, it kind of
Yep.
comes down to what you said as well. It's like CRM, and as you were saying, like in the group WhatsApp group as well, like most people were using some CRM. So at Focus and at the Arcade Group, we all use Notion. So
Yeah.
that was my thing. Like I joined, and they were using Google Sheets for the scouting, but for everything else, they were using Notion. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, why not merge it, right?
Why is this not in Notion then too?
Yeah.
Because it makes so much more sense. So I just copied the system we use at Focus and altered it for
It's
use.
it's the same discussion I had at Oro Interactive at the beginning of 2025, where they weren't using anything for scouting. They were just like Sam was getting pitches and I were getting pitches and whatever. We don't keep track of them. But then Notion became a thing, and we tried to put everything into Notion. Every system that needs tracking was going specifically only into Notion, and it's clunky, but it works. It's better than some other CRMs or platforms out there that I've worked with in the past 10 years. Asana is horrible. So, yeah.
Worked Asana. I think I use Monday, Notion. It's like everything has their flukes and their faults, and you just learn to live with it. And you're like, it's fine. It does what I want it to do, and that's kind of it. So at Focus as well, like we have an added layer, I would say, and that's mostly because so my boss has been in the game industry for like 30 to 40 years already. He's had like high positions at Ubisoft as well, so he's pretty well known in the game industry. So a lot of pitches we get in, especially at Focus as well, is just developers that know him reach out to him. It's not even like a submission, it's just like a LinkedIn message or an email saying like, hey, I'll send you my new project. It doesn't go through any of the official channels. His inbox is a big part of our submission channel as well, our scouting channel. And contact among game scouts, like talking to each other and kind of figuring out what everybody kind of focus on. Also, it helps whenever you do see a cool product that just doesn't fit for whatever reason, like it's not a fit with the editorial guidelines or budget or release timing, as Reese mentioned. Like that's such a big part as well. Then we can just be like, okay, so within my network, who do I know that could potentially fit this product? And then you just ask them. Like that's what Discord is perfect for. You just hit them up, send a quick message, show a video, or send a deck. It's like, hey, can you go for this? And then give me your thoughts, which are like an intro. That also gets done quite a bit, I would say. So that's another avenue outside of like social media, cold submissions, events, things like that. There's many ways to get your game in front of people, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear how that changed in the last like 30 or 20 years, but I guess the entire publishing system used to be very different.
I wonder if back then they just literally sent a physical email with like, here's my printed out pitch deck with like a floppy disk with the game builds. I can make the joke I'm not in the office right now, so he can't slap me, but yeah. I can imagine something like that.
I love the fact that you called it a physical email instead of just a mail.
Did I? I'm kind of the generation where email became a thing, and it's like, yeah, I'm kind of this weird in-between generation, I guess. So for me, it's still, yeah. Anyway.
Yes, Reese, is there anything you'd like to add in regards to tools that you're using at Devolver? I imagine like from the task wise it's different as a producer, but
yeah, I mean, as a producer, there's a lot of stuff that I use specifically for production, but and it's mostly, let's be fair, it's mostly spreadsheets. But for the pitching side of things, not so much. We don't have a specific tool that's used for that. If there is anything, it's, people will have spreadsheets that they're using, Google Sheets. And then we have everything that's coming through our pitching platform, which I don't have oversight of, so I can't give any insight to like how that all looks in the back end. But as far as I know, most of that's also probably going to Google Sheets. We don't have anything specific. I know there are some specific tools out there for games pitching. There's a platform called Pitchify. I don't know much about it, so I can't say whether it's good, bad, used a lot. I just know it exists. It's something that we tend to use only our own in-house tools rather than getting tools from other external companies. So it's not something we've looked at, but yeah, there are things out there. I just don't know how prevalent they are for a very specific thing within the games industry. I think we tend to try and find more all one solution fits all solutions to how we approach stuff. So yeah, it's usually, as I said, spreadsheets, or we don't use Notion, but yeah, Notion's another one that kind of fits a lot of different uses for a lot of companies, and so on and so forth.
Oh,
I would
good to
even
know.
say that something as weird as work with indies is for me also a scouting tool, because I see a developer post job like the job vacancy, and then they generally also talk about whatever project it is they're looking for, and whether that's something like early development or a bit more advanced. So even based on just putting a vacancy up on something like work with indies, or for the focus side of things, AA companies get announced on like Game Industry Biz or GameDeveloper.com, where we're like, oh, hey, we haven't talked to these people yet. Let's hit them up on LinkedIn. Oh, yes, we're very like, oh, LinkedIn is also a big thing for us.
Yeah.
I kind of started using LinkedIn as Twitter DMs as a replacement, because I don't really use Twitter anymore.
Yeah, that's
I very much against.
It's very, very beyond the whole political discussion, which I totally agree with. Not relevant to this discussion. I think everybody kind of moved to LinkedIn DMs because it's just very accessible. And it's not only from the incoming side. So, for example, if a game developer is looking to reach out to me through Twitter or X, whatever it's called, I might not see the message because the messages don't end up in my inbox because of the whole system that they've made. If I don't follow them, it just goes into requests or something like this. So I might never see the notification. This doesn't happen on LinkedIn. If somebody messages me on LinkedIn, I just see the message. But it happens for me as well. I find myself in this situation where I try to reach out to developers and they don't have their DMs open on X, so I can't talk to them in any way. So I have to go scraping through the internet, find an email address, find their personal profiles on LinkedIn, which sounds a bit stalkerish if I think about it at this point. But if you want to get in touch with a developer, you have to do it. There's no way around it. But yeah,
I think
it used to be
the same in
simple.
reverse for getting in touch with publishers as well.
Yeah, exactly. It goes both ways. 'Cause a lot of the time, people think that it's only from the developer side to the publisher, that the publisher never answers because they never see the message. But it's the other way around as well. So um, we're trying to talk to each other, but it never. Sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't work out.
I
I
wanna
will say
say-
that the big downside with LinkedIn is that there are also a lot of people spamming everyone over
Oh,
there, and the
Jesus,
bigger
that's
company you work
horrible.
for, the worse
It's
it gets. So
it's
if you
horrible,
are
but at
reaching
least
out to
yeah.
someone, yeah, to say if you are reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, then do include a wee message saying, "This is why
Yeah.
I'm reaching out to you. Like I
Yeah.
want to pitch a game." Because if somebody's getting 20, 30 connection requests a day, they're just gonna be saying no to all of them.
Yeah.
So unless they know why. So I think it's a really good tool, and it's a really good way to reach out to people. And I know it's not exactly everyone's favorite social network, but it is really useful for these kind of things where you're trying to make those business to business connections.
Yep.
Just make sure you are putting enough information as to why you're doing it, as opposed to just being like, I want to be like collecting every publisher like Pokemon. I'm going to connect with them all, right?
Yeah.
I want
I mean,
to say thanks, Reese, for accepting our LinkedIn message and coming to this panel. Much appreciated. Yeah, and what an unexpected hot tip for indie developers. Do LinkedIn, even if it's a weird echo chamber sometimes.
And maybe if you have your trailer public, make sure that on the about page of your YouTube channel you have your email. That's also another great thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I do love German developers, because I think Germany, you legally have to have an impressum on your website,
Yes.
which always includes an email address. I'm always like,
It's
yes,
so
it's
easy.
a German
It's so
developer.
easy.
I can find their email address. If I can't find it anywhere else, I just go to the website, go to impressum, and it always has an email address, and I'm happy.
But yeah, and if you want to use X or Blue Sky, please turn on your DMs.
Yes.
You don't need to be mysterious about your game. I mean, if it's a good game, we'll reach out, definitely. If it's something that looks interesting, I want to be able to reach out to you. You don't have to reach out to me if it's interesting, So yeah.
We do have a first question from the chat, actually. And this loops back a bit to your whole scouting process or the greenlighting process, I think. And this person asks, how much does your personal preference play into your decisions? Which, of course, is a bit of a loaded question. And I expect you have a lot of fail-safes for that. Frank, maybe you can tell us a bit about how it works at your three
Yeah,
companies.
it's such a difficult one because you do try to be as objective is the right word then, right? Yeah, sorry, English not my first language. I'm always like, it's subjective.
That's good.
Yeah, thanks. Always doubting myself when it gets late in the evening in my English proficiency. But you always try to be as subjective as possible, obviously. I think the more of an expert you are in a certain genre, the more colored your opinion will be in that specific genre, which can be a benefit, but can also be maybe problematic when people try to change the genre, maybe even for the best. So I do appreciate on my own that I'm a bit more of a generalist and I pretty much play anything I can get my hands on that looks in or sounds interesting. You do want to have this fail-safe where even if there's just the slightest doubts, like this could be interesting, I'm just not seeing it, but I feel like there's just a feeling that there's something interesting about it, that you do go to somebody, which is the benefit at Focus. Well, we are 4 people, and there's always at least 2 people looking at either the deck or playing the build, whatever is included in the pitch. So we always already have somebody kind of sense checking things. But if you're a solo person like Vlad and myself are at our other companies, then you do need to talk to somebody in one of the other teams and be like, hey, do you have maybe like 15 minutes to check out this build? And because you know they like the genre, for example. So at the arcade crew, we actually have, when people join the company, they have to fill out their game preferences, genre preferences. So then we can immediately filter out like, okay, these are the people I probably want to talk to when a game gets pitched in this genre, because they play it a lot, they love it, they have opinions. So it will at least be good to get those additional opinions in. It is just very tough sometimes to filter out those initial gut instincts of like, oh my God, I really dislike this kind of thing. Whether it's art direction, where it's a certain type of narration, whether it's a genre in particular. Yeah, you do need to put yourself above that and just be like, it's work. Approach it like work. It's a job. Like for any other kind of job, you don't really drag your personal opinion into things. Generally speaking, I would say. So yeah, that's kind of what you're trying to do. So it's a lot of managing that internal struggle, I guess. The stronger or the weaker that is for certain pitches.
Thank you. Reese, how about you? Are there at Devolver, I think you mentioned like there's basically a group of people. Are there any additional fail-safes or anything?
I mean, it's tricky. I think again, one of the great things about the team that we have at Devolver is that everybody understands Devolver quite well, and a lot of us are there because we personally just love the kind of games that we release. So there's a certain amount of we're already bought into Devolver games, that we already kind of understand what Devolver's looking for, and that we're not going to be completely off track with what is coming through. But that level of being able to kind of separate yourself is really important, and I think that's something that I was very lucky that I got through my years of working in QA. Is that you didn't really get to pick what you worked on. You would end up hating a lot of the stuff you were working on, but it was the job, right? It's about putting the job first and making the game the best it can be, and being able to settle into understanding what makes a game good, outside of your personal feelings of would you play this? Am I into this? And that's, I think, really helped me to be able to be a bit more objective when it comes to things that get pitched to me, that I'm like, okay, this isn't for me, but I can see why people would see this as being fun. Or if, again, we have quite a large group of people, as you said, so we can, if it's like, I kind of get this, but I don't think it's quite my understanding. Would somebody else be into this? And we get a larger group as the interest starts growing and people going, okay, actually this is really cool, and people who are really into it jump in and be like, oh no, we need to sign this immediately, kind of thing. So yeah, you don't need to be pitching to someone specifically who only loves that thing. But you do need to be thinking specifically when you are pitching stuff is whether the label or publisher as a whole makes sense for your game, because there are definitely limitations to what people will sign as far as genre or style, or in the case of Devolver, it's mostly just vibes. Um, that it's not so much for us to be like, okay, this is 100% a Devolver game. It's also on you to be like, okay, this feels like it would be a fit for that.
Thank you. Vlad, is there anything you'd like to add to that, or all covered? Are you still on mute right now? Classic.
Yeah, I was saying somebody had to do it until the end of the thing. I think that everything has been pretty much covered. It all boils down to what the editorial guidelines of said publisher are. And basically, when you get to work as a scout for a certain publisher, you should have those editorial guidelines in the back of your mind whenever you're evaluating something. So, I don't know if I'm getting a pitch for, uh, it's a bad example probably because Bright Gambit is pretty genre agnostic. But if I were to get a pitch for a pure traditional sports game, I shouldn't evaluate it based on, let's say, my preference of it being a sports game. I should evaluate it based on the pillars, the philosophy that is mentioned within the brand guidelines of what Bright Gambit wants to be and wants to put out as the projects within their portfolio. So I guess the advice here would be whenever you're pitching something, instead of sending your pitch to everybody in every email, try to like narrow down, I don't know, let's say a couple of publishers that you think would be a good fit based on their portfolio with your project and start from there. If those guys are gonna like decline your project, then you'd have to start asking yourself some questions. Are there problems with my project, or should I start pitching to a wider net and range of publishers because these guys just didn't get it? That's kind of like the short version of this discussion, I guess, the boiled down version.
I think the question has been sufficiently answered. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. One last question from this general field. You all mentioned at the beginning that you travel a lot, and I can vouch for that because I think at every international event I've been to, I've met Frank. So you definitely travel more than me. And I think it's one of the big perks that Vlad even mentioned, one of the things you love about the job. So the big question, if you can count quickly in your head, how many days per year do you travel for your job on average?
I would think about 10% roughly. Like I try to minimize it honestly. Like my first year at Focus, my boss was like, "Hey, put yourself out there. Go to a lot of events." So there were some months where I had like 2, 3 events, even back to back. So I was just gone for like 2 weeks. This year I'm doing less, and I'm saying that even though October I have 3 to 4 events, back to back to back to back. So yeah, saying that. Um, it's less honestly about going places, it's more the reasons why. So in some cases you get invited to come do a panel, do a talk, do something like that, a workshop. So you go there with that goal in mind, and of course you're going to be there at the event talking to developers, taking meetings and stuff. But it wasn't initially on the agenda to go there. There's big events that are generally we cannot miss these. So a GDC, a Gamescom are like, okay, it's a no-brainer. We don't have to talk about these. And then there's events like, especially on the indie side of things, I think it's very important to help out upcoming regions, show your face, give them people to talk to, people they can get feedback from. Because depending where people are from, they might have very hard to access expertise. They might have travel restrictions or visa restrictions where it's very hard for them to come to either GDC, especially now, of course, like let's not go political, but hey, America, fuck yeah. Same, honestly, same goes actually for Gamescom. I do talk to a lot of devs that get their visa rejected before the event, and I'm like, what? And then it shows like, okay, we should probably make sure we are visible in like Africa or Southeast Asia or South America, or yeah, there's a lot of great scenes where they're up and coming, or they transitioned from mobile to PC console premium games, and you want to be in the ground floor. You want to make sure that they remember your label is like, hey, we were there before it got big, before we got like the next Cult of the Lamb or Vampire Survivors, or I don't know, like any big title that kind of puts maybe a region, Hollow Knight obviously as well, like put a region on the map. So yeah, that's a consideration. So yeah, it's a mix of invitations and events that we need to be there, and okay, we want to show our face and support this upcoming region.
All right, Frank says 10% of his work here.
Yeah, sorry, that was a very long-winded answer for saying 10%.
No, perfect. Thank you so much. Reese, what about you? I mean, as a producer, it's a bit different for sure, but
Yes, it's different, but I would say probably about that, if not a little bit more, because my job first is being a producer. So I will be at any shows that games I'm working on are being shown at. I also spend a lot of time going and traveling and meeting developers that I'm working with at key milestones. But on top of that, I also do the very similar thing to Frank, where if I'm invited to go somewhere to do a talk or meet with developers, do pitch sessions, those kinds of things, then occasionally I'll slot those in where I can. But I will say that I'm probably traveling at least once, if not twice a month, around the world. Devolver is also an entirely remote company, so there's a certain amount of just going to our one office, which is in London, right? So I try to do that once a month too. So there's a lot of travel involved with my job. Not entirely around pitching, but just in general, which is actually something that's great because I quite enjoy getting to go places and meet new people. So it's one of the highlights really.
glad to hear that. I think, yeah, that would be a bummer if you didn't enjoy it with that travel load. Okay, Vlad, what about you?
Yeah, I think 10-15% is probably a good estimate. I think my most traveled year, I can't give like a day estimate, but I've done 14 events in a year, which basically boils down to like one and a half events per month. I guess that would be like an average. I try as much as possible to keep it at around one event per month because if you travel to if you do like 2-3 events at one point, you're not working anymore, you're just traveling. Or you spend most of the time in airports, which at some point is fun, but at the end of the day it's not. When you have like your second layover after a flight from Australia, it's just not fun anymore. So yeah, I guess in this year at least, I've tried to limit myself to one event per month. I think it's like the most reasonable thing to do. Obviously, like the other said, if you get invited to something and you have 2 events in a month, like October is going to be, Frank, I'll see you there. Yeah, it happens, but you're gonna have to try to balance it as much as possible because we're human beings. We get sick. I got sick after like 3 events this year already, and I'm sick right now, so I don't know if I can survive like 3 back-to-back events while being sick. But the reason why we do it, because this is the point that I was trying to make, at least the reason why I do it, is because I want to meet the developers on their home turf. I think that's the most important thing. And one of the reasons that I've been going to smaller events in the last couple of years, or events from regions that are not Europe or North America, is because I don't get the chance to go to those regions very often. And the developers definitely will not be coming to GDC or Gamescom, especially since they're from South America. From like I've went to an event in Argentina this year in Cordoba. There were developers from Paraguay and Bolivia. I wouldn't have gotten a chance to meet those guys at Gamescom for sure. And it's not necessarily because they can't afford it to come over to Europe. It's just because of the technical issues of, like Frank said, with visas, with travel times. There's just no good options for them to easily be able to travel to Europe. And if there are opportunities for me to do it for them, I think that's very, very good. So recommendation for scouts, I guess, this time around, if you can have the opportunities to go to regions that are underrepresented, let's say, South America, Southeast Asia, New Zealand, wherever, just go to these regions, go to these events because it's worth it. And you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know which projects might end up being put in front of you. That are definitely not going to be at GDC for sure, because people can't afford like 5K entry passes or badge passes or whatever the passes are these days.
A quick question then,
Yep.
because I think it's great for indies to know where they could meet you or what events they should invest in. Do you have a tip, like which events for 2026 would really be worth their money in your opinion?
I mean, for me, it depends where the developer is from. If you're from Germany, which I guess this is the case, obviously you should be at Gamescom because everybody's there, and it's the best opportunity to meet a lot of the bigger name labels, and the smaller labels as well. It just everybody gathers for Gamescom every year, so I think it's a good opportunity to be there. Um, Other than that, I don't know. For developers, it's important to go to your local events. Always be present at your local events. Create communities around your local scene. Because probably if you're not from one of the big centers or one of the big cities, um, there's not a lot of game developers out there, so you might as well just meet them from the developers you have in your region. So always support your local events. I think that's the big one that I want to say. No
Well,
matter where
thank
you're
you so
from,
much.
support your local events. Yeah.
Thank you so much for making for doing a little shout out for the Game City Treff, which is happening next week. Perfect.
Yep. Shout out.
No, thank you. Okay. Oh, Frank, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I want to say, like, I wouldn't necessarily put too much emphasis on events, like attending events per se, especially the bigger ones. As Vlad said, it's good advice to do your
I think
local
it's good for
events.
the experience,
It can be good for the experience. For me, like, figure out what your goal is. Like, why are you
Yeah.
going to these events? Like, in a lot of cases, you're actually looking for feedback. So you're mostly looking for B2C events then instead of just B2B events. If you're looking for a publisher, going to events is a way, if it's local, if it's nearby, because costs are low, so you can just go, like, if you can drive there, take the train, whatever. You could maybe even go home at night, sleep in your own bed, perfect. Spending like 5, 10, 15K on going to GDC for a week is insane because the value you get out of it it's minimal. Like, you always have to consider your goal for going to any event, big or small, because everything is so, like, we're all quite available. Like, everything is digital. You can hit people up on Discord, LinkedIn, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever. I get better conversation out of setting up a call or having like a really nice Discord chat or even an email thread than a 20-minute rushed meeting at Gamescom, because I'm like running between meetings and I'm literally back to back all day. Like, I do 60, 70 meetings in 3 days or something like that. So you always have to consider what is the benefit from that, because in the end, the information will still get to me. If you submit it through our forum, I will still treat it in the exact same way if you message me on LinkedIn or if we've actually met in person at an event. You're probably a bit more memorable if we met in person, but that's kind of where it ends, honestly. Yeah. So it's more about, like, how much is this costing me, and is this worth the investment? Both time, because it also takes you away from developing your game for maybe a week or longer. Is this all worth it? I think that's for me a huge consideration. And internally, we're always talking about, can we just do less events? Like, if we're looking at what we're actually paying to go, it's GDC and Gamescom. That's it. Everything else, we're only going because we're invited and costs are covered. That's pretty much it. So yeah, how much should developers then be asked to invest on their end?
I think one thing I might add to this, since it's kind of a little dirty little secret of the publishing industry, is that very few people actually sign games that are pitched to them from 20-minute pitch meetings that they have to go through at big events. these meet to match meetings that you have, and it's such a cattle call of you. By the time you've gone through 20 of these meetings and however many days, you've already forgotten everyone, and everything kind of blends together. But the one thing that you will get out of these, potentially, and the best thing you can get out of these is you've got a face and a name that is remembered, and they go, okay, this isn't the game for us right now because they didn't know enough information about it. They're not feeling excited about it, but you've already got that connection, and then later on, then that relationship can be built up a little bit more. But I personally have never signed anything that I've seen from a quick pitch meeting. It's something that is quite a low hit number. The thing that really does make the difference, though, are like going to networking events. Again, those local events, or if you're going to a thing like in the UK, we have Develop Brighton, which is a very, there are those kind of meetings, but a lot of the events that really make an impact of how you get in front of publishers and how you build a relationship with publishers are going to social events and just chatting with people like they're human beings. And it's amazing how much better of a relationship that builds with someone that you approach people as friends. And these kind of events, these kind of networking, quieter, chiller, less pressure events, I think, make the bigger impact as far as you being able to have those connections and build upon those relationships later, as opposed to coming in desperately being like, I need this money or my company's about to die. Like it's too much. And I don't feel like people should be putting themselves in that position because it's too risky. Find ways to make those connections early with people in a more humanistic way rather than waiting until things are desperate. Because it's too much pressure on yourself to do that.
Thank you for this very varied insights, and I'm sure a lot of people and their budgets are very happy to hear all that. We've talked a lot about your job now, but as you know, Game Starter is actually about how to get into this job. And I'm sure now everyone wants to do it. Everyone wants to play games for their work and do admin work and more. So I'd like to pass it back to Judith now to talk a bit more about how to actually become a Game Scout.
Yay, exactly, because we are at Game Starter, so let's find out how to start, to how to become a Game Scout. You've already all three of you mentioned it earlier when you introduced yourself. None of you actually started out as Game Scouts in the industry or with the position that you're at right now. And when we were talking earlier, you already said that it's really more a position that you kind of grow into throughout your career. But in your experience or in your opinion, or is there any like formal education that obviously there's no like Game Scout university class or something like that, but is there any formal education that is useful if that is your final goal? Is there something that you would say is just, a pro or like nice to have for someone looking to go in that direction? Maybe Frank, do you want to start?
Oh yeah, because there's definitely not an education for this, or even like a simple like course that is just like 2 days or whatever. No, I think all of us, you come from varied backgrounds, different educations. Myself, I didn't study anything. I did middle school, finished it, went to work, did back office finance for 8 years, kind of rolled into PR marketing for a gaming subscription service. I actually got into this job because I was tweeting about games. I love indie games for as long as I can remember. And I came across a lot of games on Twitter back when it was still good. So we're talking about like 10 years ago ish, a little bit less. I'm not that old. And just like collecting them and finding the games that not a lot of people were talking about. And then like once a week, I would put out like a tweet saying like, hey, spotlighting this and this game. I think it looks cool. Pay attention to it, blah, blah. I got approached by somebody who was publishing director at Those Awesome Guys. We come back to Those Awesome Guys again. And he was like, hey, I always see you post about games. You seem to know a lot of these really cool games. Maybe we should meet at an event. Like, hey, I'm in your country. So I was living in the Netherlands back then. There's this upcoming event. Maybe we can meet and talk. And yeah, that's kind of how I rolled into things. I think skill-wise, it's good to be a people person, like be open to conversations, be able to carry conversations as well, because not everybody is going to be as extrovert all the time. Like, I'm an introvert masquerading as an extrovert at events and things like this. If you know me, I am a very quiet person, but as soon as you see me at events or things like that, I do talk a lot, and I think that helps a lot. Like, analytical skills, I think, help a lot. So I've worked with a game designer as well as part of the scouting team, and I always appreciated their background of having studied game design and having worked as a game designer on games, because it brings something to the table that I don't have. I think from my background, I bring a little bit of analytical thinking from being a game journalist, where you're always very critical about games and trying to dissect them, see what works, what doesn't work, and that has always helped me, I feel. So those are the things I would say could be very cool and nice to have. But honestly, having also done the interviews for junior positions, it's always like, yeah, what are the vibes? Do you fit in our team, in our philosophy? Do you have a good eye for what makes a game stand out? Cool, let's give this a shot and see if it works out. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's kind of what we talked about earlier. Like, everyone just kind of goes through a bunch of different stops. But yeah, that's also kind of, you already sort of covered my next question, so I'm gonna put it in the mix for Reese and Vlad too. What are certain skills that you would like, soft skills, hard skills, that you think a game scout kind of needs to have? I think we already covered a little bit of that. And then with the experience part, because we already know, like, there is no like school class or university or whatever studies you can take for that. What kind of experience would you say is very good to gather in the industry before you become a game scout? Because if you are gonna go through different stations, different stops within the industry, there's probably things that are just very useful, things that are good to know. Reese, maybe you want to just get into it.
Sure. I do think the main thing, obviously, mostly it's soft skills, being personable, understanding people, liking meeting people, being able to not put your opinion above everything just because you're like, I love this, but it's like, is it good for the company? These are all very important, and we've discussed all that stuff already. But I think the main thing that you need to bring to the table is an understanding of what goes into making games, and an understanding of being able to see something that isn't pretty and go, okay, I can understand where this is going, or look at a timeline and go, that makes sense. Or at a cost and go, okay, that feels about right. You know, there's one thing we see over and over again is sort of inexperienced teams that come up and they're like, you know, we've just graduated from high school and we're going to make this massively multiplayer RPG and we're going to make it in 2 months. And you're just like, no, you're not. You know, there's a certain amount of just being able to understand how development works, and that really only comes from experience of working in other places within the industry, and that doesn't come from any one place, right? So I mean, I have it as a producer and as an XQA person, but you can have it as someone who works in marketing and has seen development from that side, or from PR, or from writing, where you can sort of see the struggles that the teams have gone through because you've talked to them and you understand how that all comes from. It is unfortunately one of the things I think it does require games industry experience to be able to walk into those kind of positions, to be able to do it objectively. But I wouldn't say it would take forever to get that. You know, yes, I've had 20 years of my career to get here. I wouldn't say you need that to be able to do this. It doesn't hurt for me, but you can do it from basically any other position in the games industry in less time.
It's so interesting. It's probably like one of the most diverse ways, like, or most diverse positions to get into, because everyone can just kind of come from every direction and get there, I guess. Vlad, do you want to add anything? Also, another question that just popped in is like, if you had someone who already knows they want to be a game scout, because I'm already assuming maybe you didn't know 20 years ago that this was what you want to do, I don't know, and you like happened upon it. But if someone already knows this is what I want to do, where would you like recommend for them to start right now? Like what's not that there's the one thing, obviously we've already established there's not the one thing, but if you had to have like give a recommendation.
So, just to start from the first question, I guess, I think scouting is not a position you can get from anyone. It's a position you either push yourself into, or you inherit it from someone else that left the company that you're working on. In my case, for example, when I started scouting, I was kind of a mix of both because initially like I said, when I used to work at Those Awesome Guys, I was the main marketing lead on a bunch of projects. As you know, marketing leads do like build marketing campaigns, timelines, a lot of things, a lot of the skills that learned within marketing in video games are easily translatable to scouting as well. And I basically at a point I was only working with the projects that were already signed, and I basically pushed myself into, hey, I want to do a lot of marketing review for potential projects that we could sign. So something like new businessy type of deal. This is something that business developers or people who study go to business courses at universities, maybe they can understand something like this. So maybe that's a good recommendation. If you want to do like post-grad stuff, maybe do a business course. Maybe it would help you understand the way scouting could work for a potential publisher. But yeah, for me, it was this. I pushed myself into this position, but I also inherited it after Frank left at Those Awesome Guys because Frank was initially the scout. I was only doing marketing. Then I started helping Frank because we were looking together at things because we could ping pong projects off of one another. And I inherited this position from him. And then went on and did my own thing into scouting in the future. So I guess the basic recommendation that would be for you to, if you want to end up doing something like this, try to get a position within a publishing company and then push yourself through, the work that you do, the ideas that you have within the company, and try to push yourself within the ranks in order to get a position to do scouting or new business, as it could be called. So yeah, I think this is like a way to do it. And sorry, please, can you remind me the second part of the question you said? Because it like slipped my mind.
That was pretty much the question I asked. Like,
Okay.
where would you recommend to start off? If someone
Yeah,
said,
I
like,
think
this is
this
where
would
I
be
want to go.
yeah.
So like, but
Yeah,
you
I think
already
this would be
answered that.
a place to start. Scouting is a position that generally is, like I said, either inherited from someone else and you were doing something other within the publisher and you inherited those tasks as well, or you're either one of the senior people in the company and you have to look for new projects and have to look for new business for the company. So I don't think it's a reasonable goal for a fresh graduate or a very young person to try to be a scout from the get-go, unless maybe there's companies out there who are trying to build a bigger scouting department. I know, for example, in other industries, for example, in music or in sports, scouting is a huge thing. There's like sports teams who have like 50 different people within a scouting department to be able to find players, or people who work in music labels. They have like a lot of scouts. It's not just one or two people. But for the games industry and for the future of the games industry, I think scouting is going to be a very limited job in numbers wise. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think there's 120 of us on the whole planet. I mean, we're all in the same Discord servers, like I said, in the same WhatsApp groups. We kind of know each other. I have not seen a new scout or somebody who just pops up as a scout in a while, I think. Maybe Frank has met someone new, very young, who's a scout. I don't know, or maybe you, Reese, maybe you've heard of someone, but I personally haven't. So I guess the easiest thing to do would be this, like I said, start off within another position within a publishing company, do something else like marketing, or even on the technical side, like programming or arts or whatever. And then if you want to do something like this, push yourself within that company and convince people that you want to be the person who brings new projects to discussion on the table. And at one point, maybe you get lucky enough and they give you the hat. They give you the scouting hat.
Thank you so much. So our
Yeah.
advice is just get lucky, I guess. No.
It's unfortunate, but there's this industry specifically is still reliant on luck a lot of the times when it comes to like getting your project signed if you're a developer, or if you're a scout finding the next clover pit, you know, it's 50% luck a lot of the time. The other 50% is hard work and knowing the right people.
That's also really just life.
Yeah.
Time really is running out for us, but we have one more question from the chat and then one final question for everyone where you all get to kind of plug your current projects. But let's get into the chat question real quick, and maybe everyone can answer. This is a bit of a challenge, but maybe everyone can answer with like a very short 1 to 5 word thing, because it is a question that can be answered with singular words, I would say. Someone asked, what do you think could be the next big genre one could approach? I'm guessing this is a question more from like a developer side. But yeah, what's like the next big genre you might be looking out for? Or you feel like it's up and coming? Reese, do you want to start?
Yes, but I don't have an answer. And I think that is the answer. It's one of those things you just know it when you see it, and I do feel there's more that can be done within the genres that exist. I don't want people to think they need to be chasing a trend. Don't be a trend chaser. We don't care about trends largely. We just care about good games. So make something good.
Very good answer. Vlad or Frank, do you have a word for that, or a genre that you feel like you've been suddenly enjoying that might be coming? Or
So I think I just want to keep this as short as possible. And the thing that I'm going to say is that I don't believe there's new genres out there anymore. I think the response to this is figure out how you can remix mechanics or things from genres and put them together in order to make a cool game. That's the answer that I have.
become a genre DJ then. Frank, do you have anything to add, or are you gonna?
It's 100% that, to be honest, because trend forecasting, it's amazing if somebody's able to be like, hey, this is going to be the next thing in the next couple of years. I think you see that in maybe some other industries that move a bit slower than ours. I think the game industry moves way too rapidly to be like, hey, this is going to be the next thing. It usually comes from where there's maybe a handful of people across the world thinking about pretty similar thing, like, oh, would it be cool if this was going to be made, and they all start and their own projects. They all kind of have a similar vibe or theme or something kind of connecting them, but of course different executions. And there's always going to be then the one of them that's going to hit it big, like the Blood Throws Vampire Survivors, the games that I keep going back to as perfect example of remixing something that's already very much prevalent in the world and in the game industry in a new and novel way that lands big. Yeah, so that's kind of it. As was said, like trend chasing is a difficult thing. I would say that counts mostly for publishers, and especially the bigger the publisher gets, the less trend chasing they can be because of the way trends go and the velocity of them compared to our velocity to keep up with them and actually make sure that we provide a good runway for a product to get out there. If you're self-publishing, and I think where Vlad used to work at Oro, I think they're doing a great job of doing very short development cycles, much more trend focused, where that is possible because you can just have the idea, announce the game, and ship the game within 3 to 6 months. Perfect. There is a chance to be successful at that. Keep doing that. But from a publishing perspective, there's just unfortunately not a lot of people that can support something like that.
Thank you all so much. Okay, we are already way over time, but obviously we have this big last question for everyone. And maybe Frank, you want to start? Is there anything you want to plug? A game you're playing, something that's coming up, an exciting event, an interesting case study? What do you want to share?
I at least need to plug a game we're releasing at .emu, .emu very soon. A game called Absalom, which is a genre mix of beat 'em up and roguelike, which works wonderfully well, honestly. It's by the same people who developed Streets of Rage 4, which is more like classic beat 'em up game. So that's coming out in October. So please buy that so I can keep my job. On the games that I don't publish but wish I did, we have, oh, sorry, Reese, I'm going to step on your toes. We have Ball Pit coming out in a couple of weeks, which I've been playing for a couple of years already in the early stages. And it's gonna be so amazing. And if you want to play a game right now, Vlad already mentioned it, and we were talking pre-show about it. Clover Pit, absolutely amazing. It was the developers that was the last game that we signed at those awesome guys. Yellow Taxi Ghost Room, which was also an amazing game, very underrated. And their new game, Clover Pit, is just, yeah, it's really addictive.
Thank
So that
you
was
so
it. That was my
much.
plug.
That was a bunch of good recommendations, really, and I feel like you already rolled out the red carpet for Reese. Maybe you want to take over.
To a certain degree, but also stole my thunder a little there, Frank. No.
Sorry,
I mean,
not
yeah.
sorry. I just love the game so much.
I'll take the extra plug for Ball Pit. Yeah, so Ball Pit is one of the games I've been producer on, and it is honestly absolutely fantastic. The demo is available right now on Steam, and it is coming out October 15th on Xbox Game Pass, on PlayStation 5, on PC and Switch 1, and Switch 2 will be coming out soon as well. It is super addictive. It's basically sort of the game Breakout. We had to break the blocks mixed with sort of a auto shooter Vampire Survivors with a roguelike element to it, and it's very Moorish. We have people that have played. There's a tiny wee demo on Steam, and people have already put 50 hours just into that demo. It is crazy. And you will too if you pick it up. Sorry for everything that'll happen to you if you do, because it's that good. I do also want to give a wee shout out to Clover Pit. I know the game's sounding so similar, we might have a wee bit of a competitive thing going on there, but no, Clover Pit's also incredibly good. So yeah, do pick that up too.
I love that. Also, for the record, I heard some people call it a ball X pit.
Oh, no. The X
That's
is
a branding
silent.
issue right there.
That's how you find it, though, on Steam. If you're looking for
Yes.
it, look that up. Exactly. And then maybe last but not least, Vlad, what do you want to recommend? What do you want to put out there?
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to recommend, if you are a solo developer or part of a small team and you're looking for like a bunch of funding, and you're working on a cool game that's not like a ripoff of something else, please go to brightgambit.com. You can see in the contact section there's a submission form over there. It's very nicely structured. You can put your details in there. We're still looking for games for next year. So if there's something that you are working on, please do send it over there. I'll have a look, and if it's cool enough, we'll chat. If not, we'll see. In terms of like games, I'd definitely like to throw a shout out there to Easy Delivery Company, which is a game that I signed for Oro Interactive earlier this year. As Frank mentioned, Oro does very trend, I don't want to say trend chasing content, but sort of influencer baity style content. And this was a game that didn't really fit the bill, but it was amazingly well thought out. Again, it's not a new genre, but it's a remix of a lot of things. It's basically Silent Hill meets Animal Crossing, which sounds amazing on paper, and I'll guarantee if you play it, you'll enjoy it to bits. It's a great game that I found on itch.io, and we signed it in 2 weeks. So not 6 months, like Frank said. We just signed it in 2 weeks. So yeah, Easy Delivery Company's been doing amazingly well as well. You can find it on Steam. I think the shorter version is Easy Delivery Co., but it's pronounced Easy Delivery Company. It's not a silent X in the middle. And just like for fun and trivia, I'd like to throw out another shout out to a game called Guilty as Sock, which came out earlier this year. It's a sandboxy conversational style game made by a bunch of developers from France that I desperately tried to sign to 3 different publishers, and nobody wanted to sign it. And it has over 1.5K reviews on Steam already, I think. It's a really great game that nobody wanted to sign. For example, and this is a good example that sometimes publishers get it wrong, and it happens. But it ended up being a good thing because these guys get to keep all of the money that they get, right? So
We love to hear it.
You know?
Publishers may get it wrong, but you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it wrong a lot of the times as well, but this one was I cry about it every night still. So
In
it
your
is
socks,
it is
right?
what it is. Yeah, it is in my socks. But yeah, a great game. Try it out. I think it's on sale right now because the Steam sale is happening, so even better.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for your contributions, for covering such a wide range of topics. I feel like we just kept on talking and talking, so this was really, really fun, very interesting, and it was also just very interesting to hear about your journeys within the industry, where you came from, where you're going, what you're still up to. I really look forward to meeting you sometime in the future. And with that, I think we are done here. We are 10 minutes over time, but I feel like we all enjoyed it, so that's fine.
It's great.
Yes, thank you very much, and good night and goodbye to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.